Merging code into branches could be a very time-consuming task, especially on big projects with many developers, or in any case when you have a lot of branches and a lot of pull requests that have to be reviewed, approved, and merged in the correct order. And it's not just the merge itself, because for each pull request, you need to decide who the reviewers are, you need to assign labels, perhaps rebase your branches, taking in considerations the most updated version that have been pushed in the meantime to the main branch, and much more. Wouldn't it be nice if we could have a free automation tool that works with any CI, integrate natively with GitHub, and can do all the things I just mentioned? Well, today I have that very tool for you. Let's talk about it. Hey, welcome back to CoderDave, where we talk about DevOps, especially with GitHub and Azure DevOps. What I have for you today is a review of a tool that promises to revolutionize the way we work with our pull requests and do our merges. It's called Mergify. Before diving into the tool though, I want to quickly thank Bharati to be one of the newest members of the channel. Click on the join button down below to know more about the memberships. So what is Mergify? Mergify is a tool that helps prioritizing, queuing, and automatically merging your pull requests, and which can also rebase and update your branches while commenting, labeling, assigning, and closing your pull requests. If it sounds really powerful, it's because it actually is. I know what you're thinking now. Couldn't I do some of those things in GitHub directly? Well, yes and no. There are of course some features that we will see in a second that are covered by GitHub, but you can either need to activate them manually, or anyway, they are not as powerful as the counterparts that Mergify provides. And in other cases, these features are just simply missing from GitHub, at least at the time of recording this video. So keep watching if you want to discover all of those. As I usually do in my reviews, let's start by quickly see how to enable and set up the tool the first time you use it. All you have to do is going to mergify.com and click on sign up. You will then need to insert your GitHub username and password, because Mergify in fact uses the GitHub authentication and you're in. And to interact with GitHub, Mergify requires you to install a GitHub app. And as always happens when installing GitHub apps, you can pick and choose the organizations and accounts where you want to install the app. And then you can choose if you want it to access all of your repos in that organization or only the hand-selected ones. And when it's done, you'll be redirected to the Mergify dashboard, where a message will welcome you saying the setup of Mergify on your account is completed, and that to fully utilize the service, you should create a config file in the root directory of your repository with the rules that you want to apply. And we will see all of this in just a second, but first let's go back to the dashboard and see what we have here out of the box. As you can see, the dashboard is quite minimalistic. On the left-hand side, we have the selection of the account or organization we want to work on. And as you can see, I've currently installed Mergify on both my personal account and the CoderDave YT organization, but we can always add more organizations. Then we have the list of repositories currently visible to Mergify in the selected account. We can pick the repo we want to work on using the drop-down list, and we can add additional repos if we have enabled it only on a subset of repositories in the app. Next is the application keys menu, where, as the name says, we can create API keys to be used for integration with other tools that require API access. We then have the billing section, which we will explore later on when we talk about pricing, and the usage section, which shows you the active users in your selected repos. It is important to note here that Mergify counts all active users that have write access to your repo as a seat. So basically every contributor will be or need a seat in Mergify. In my example here, in fact, you can see I have two seats. One is my user, Newton, and that is marked as common because of course I have write access to all my repos. And then I have Anthony because it turns out I've added him as a contributor in the action test repo and I've forgotten about it. As I've said, we will take a look at the different plans later, but don't worry because they do have a free option that lasts forever. But otherwise, if you decide you like the tool and you want to subscribe to any of the paid plans, you can use the coupon code CoderDave22 to get 2 months free on any of the subscriptions. But let's get now into the beefier stuff about Mergify and let's try and configure the first set of rules. As we said before, Mergify relies on a configuration file in your repo to apply the rules. Of course, we can create that file manually, or we can use this config editor. First thing, let's select the repository we want to work on, HKOSCon 2020. Now, if we go to the repo, we can see that I have a lot of pull requests in here, number 2, 6, and so on and so forth. And I don't have the Mergify configuration file in the root of the repo. This is why when I click on the config editor, Mergify will propose me the default rule, which as we see, it's fairly simple. It will just wait for the number of approved reviewers to be at least 1, and then automatically merge the pull request. Before we start looking more into rules, let's understand how the rule is done. First of all, this is a pull request rule. It has a name, which is arbitrary. We can put whatever we want. It has some conditions and then some actions. As we've seen already, in this case, the condition is the number of approved reviewers should be greater or equal to 1. And I know it is a number because it has this hash sign in front, which is part of the grammar and indicates indeed numbers. And then in the action, we have the action of merge. One thing I really like is that I can test my rules against my pull request in this specific repository even before creating the file. So for example, if I want to test my rule against the pull request number 2, I just click on 2. And automatically Mergify will test the rule against that pull request. As we can see, the rule is marked as potential. And what that means is that if the condition happens, then the rule will be applied. In this case, of course, it's just potential, is not a match because that pull request has not been approved. If by absurd we change this to 0, which wouldn't make sense, and we check the configuration, we can see that the rule actually matches, must be approved by at least 0 approvers, and so it matches. Let's put this back to 1 and check the configuration again. Let's try to make this rule a little bit more useful. If we go back to the repo, we can see that the pull request number 2, for example, has only one file, and that file is the readme.markdown. Let's say I want to automatically merge all the pull requests that target the readme.markdown file. I can do this by adding a new condition, files equals readme.markdown. I can check the configuration, and now you can see that the rule, or that specific condition rather, is matched. So as soon as I will approve, this will also be merged. If I try to test this against the pull request number 6, for example, that targets different files, we can see that this condition is not matched anymore. By default, the conditions are evaluated all together. So it's basically this one and this other one. If I want to have instead one or the other, I can prefix this with an operator, which will be OR, and now if I check again my configuration, you can see that this new thing comes up and says any of those. If I revert back to my pull request number 2 and I check the configuration again, you can see that this rule matches because one of those two conditions actually match and it's enough for the rule to be evaluated, and so the pull request will be merged. And we can take this even further. And let's say I want to automatically merge all the pull requests that have only one file. So what I can do is, first of all, I can change this to end and then add OR operator here. And I can use either this or if number of files is 1. If I check the configuration now, you can see that the rule is potential. It needs to be either one file or the readme MD. If I change again back to number 6, which is targeting only one file, but the file is not the readme markdown, once again, you can see that this is matched because the number of files is 1. So as you can see, this is really, really powerful. If there is one thing that I would see improved in this is that there's no IntelliSense, there's no auto-suggestion. I would love to see the auto-completion or at least auto-suggestion in the moment in which I, add a new row. I would like to see the different attributes, the grammar, the syntax, and so on and so forth. If I write something that doesn't make sense, I do have these error messages coming up, but I would really love to see some auto-completion in here. So let's clean these up, check that everything is all right. And now let's click this create a pull request with this config. What this will do, as the name says, is creating a pull request to create the configuration file in the repository we've selected with the rules we've written. Let's click on it and you can see we've created the pull request number 22 with the new configuration. We can navigate to it, and when our checks are passed, we can merge the pull request. And just like that, the configuration is pushed to your repo. And as soon as you merge the pull request, then Mergify will apply those rules to all of your pull requests, or at least the pull requests that match the conditions. And the way this works is that when a pull request is created in your repo, Mergify posts a status check about that pull request and applies the defined rules. We're once again in Mergify, and this is similar to the rule I've created before. I just removed the approval part to make it easier for this demo. As soon as I've pushed this rule before to the repo, automatically it is applied to my open pull request. And so if we go back to our pull request page, you can see that I only have one open pull request, where before I had more than these. And in fact, if we go to the closed ones, we can see that we have our pull request number 2, which is the one we were working on before. And if I scroll down, you can see that the Mergify bot has merged these because the conditions of the rules were matched. I can check the details, and you can see that, of course, it's been merged also after the checks have passed. Let's try this live. And again, let's create a pull request on the README file. Let's remove this, commit to a new branch, and create the pull request. You can see that this summary job from Mergify is running. It says that our rules are under evaluation, and we can check the details. And here we can see that the rule has matched because actually both of our conditions, even though they are either or, conditions are matched. And you can also see that because of that, the pull request has been merged automatically. And so it's not here anymore. We can, of course, have also multiple rules in the same file, and rules with multiple actions. As you can see in the second rule I've created, I want to assign any pull request that targets any YAML file and is not closed. This minus in front of the condition means not, so this is not closed. I want to assign it to the user Newton, which is myself, and also add the label to the pull request, and the label should be the enhancement label. Now let's try to see this in action. As you can see, I have made some changes in this Newton patch 3 branch, and I can create a pull request for it. And also, as you can see here, I've modified 2 YAML files in this pull request. Let's click create it. Again, we have the summary job running, which is evaluating our rules. And as soon as it finishes, we should see the result. This pull request should be assigned to myself. Here we go. The assignment is to me. And also the label is enhancement as we specify in the rule. And we can see, in fact, that the Mergify bot has done those operations for us. And in this case, it has not been automatically merged because the other rule we have specified that the automatic merge is only for pull requests that target the readme.md file or that have only one file. In this case, we have 2, so it didn't happen. These are just few examples of conditions and actions that you can have. So I'd recommend you check out the documentation for the complete list of the grammar, operators, conditions, actions, and so on and so forth. Not bad, right? And we've just scratched the surface about what Mergify can do. Before we move on to the next features, hit the like button below if you're enjoying this video or you find it insightful. This will help this video to be recommended to more viewers so they can benefit from it. And of course, that would mean a lot to me. Thank you. So what else Mergify can do? Well, as a starter, it also exposes some commands that you can trigger by commenting a pull request. You can see the list of those commands on the commands page in the documentation, but what they do is basically run some actions directly without leveraging the rule system. And executing a command is really easy. All you need to do is tagging the Mergify bot and specify a command. For example, if I want to update the branch associated with this pull request to include all the changes that have been made in the main branch, I will comment saying @Mergify.io update. And when I comment, Mergify will take care of the rest. You can see that I had a thumbs up for the Mergify bot, meaning that it has received the command. And now we can also see that the Mergify bot has updated our branch, merging our main branch into this one. Once again, to check all the commands that are available, go to the Mergify documentation under the commands and you can see everything you can do with this tool. And since we've talked about actions, let's see what other actions and rules we can add to our configuration file. First things to mention is that the configuration file can have 4 different sections: pull request rules, queue rules, command restrictions, and defaults. And you can have config files with all 4 of those or as little as just 1, and of course anything in between. Pull request rules, as the name says, apply to pull requests. You can use them to govern how and when your merges will happen. And as we've seen before, those rules need to have a name, some conditions, and some actions to be executed. For example, the rules you see on screen now will instruct Mergify to automatically merge your code when the CI is successful and it has received 2 reviews. That was a pretty simple rule, but you can write very complex ones if you want. Take this rule set, for example, in which we have 4 different rules that work together to prioritize the merge of different pull requests using labels. This could be very useful, for example, when you have many pull requests and you want to decide or change the order in which those pull requests are merged. Perhaps you want to have your hotfixes merge before other features, and so on and so forth. And last example of a complex rule is this one, in which you can use some regular expressions to read the body of the PR and look for checkboxes. If the checkboxes are present, the rule checks if they are checked, and it proceeds to merge only if they are, and of course if the CI was successful. I think you got the idea. And you can even create rules to manage and merge automatically PRs created by other automation tools like Sneak, Dependabot, and many others. But let's move now to queue rules. To understand queue rules, we need to first understand merge queues and what problems they do solve. Let's say we have a repo and as usual we make some changes and then we open a pull request. The PR is valid, so the CI and all the tests pass. But while the pull request is open, let's say another commit is pushed to main and the tests are run against the main branch by the CI, so they pass as well. The pull request is still marked as valid by the continuous integration system since it did not change. As there is no code conflict, the pull request is considered as mergeable by GitHub. But when you merge the PR, however, it is possible that the pull request that was once working breaks the main branch. The stalled pull request might introduce regressions or breakages into the production system. Using a merge queue solves this problem by updating each branch to the latest version of its base branch before being merged. And this of course will trigger again the CI, and like in this case we've seen, it will fail. And in fact, if a merge queue were being used in the previous example, Mergify would automatically merge the main into the base branch. The continuous integration system would have rerun and marked the pull request as failing the test, removing it from the merge queue altogether. Mergify provides this feature, and so in fairness does GitHub, at least partially, but Mergify can take this a lot further. For example, merging all the PRs in the correct orders or batching merges of PRs. When multiple PRs are mergeable, they are scheduled to be merged sequentially and they are updated on top of each other. And the pull request branch update is only done when this pull request is scheduled or is available to be merged by the engine. That means that when a first pull request has been merged and the second one is outdated, like you can see in this image, Mergify will make sure that pull request number 2 is updated with the latest tip of the base branch before merging. With this, there's no way to merge a broken pull request into the base branch. Now that we have seen this in theory, let's see how we can configure queue rules in Mergify. Let's start with this simple example. This set of rules gives us the ability to queue our pull request merges based on conditions. In this case, with the action of type queue, this pull request rule will send to this queue defined over here all the pull requests that match those conditions. And when the pull requests are sent to the queue, they will be merged sequentially based on the order in which they are added to the queue. Of course, only if this condition is verified. So as you can see here, a queue rule always depends on the queue itself, but also on the queue action defined in a pull request rule. And even if a pull request is already in a queue, it can be removed if any of those conditions are not verified anymore. Let's see this other example, which is a little bit more complex. In this case, we have 2 queues, the urgent queue and the default queue. As you can imagine, the concept here is that I want to have 2 different queues, one for pull requests that are urgent to be merged and one for normal pull requests. To be able to do that, I also have 2 pull request rules. So if a pull request, apart from the other conditions, have a label of type urgent, they will be sent to the urgent queue. Otherwise, it will be sent to the default queue. A pull request that has the label urgent will get into the queue as soon as it is approved by 2 developers or 2 approvers, but before the CI has even run on it. You can see that there is no check success condition in this. And this also means that it will be in front of the default queue. Mergify will update the pull request with the base branch if necessary, and wait for the CI to pass and then merge the pull request. While for the default queue, we also need the CI to pass as precondition for the pull request to be added to the queue. Remember that the queue processes the pull request sequentially. Mergify also has a feature that is called speculative checks, and we can see an example here. What this does is try and process the pull request in parallel. So basically this will allow Mergify to trigger multiple runs of the CI in parallel and therefore merge in parallel. For example, in this case, we have this speculative check 2, which means that Mergify will create up to 2 new pull requests to check if the first pull requests that are in the queue are mergeable. Pull requests in the queue are added to something that is called a merge train, and so they are tested together in parallel to be able to merge it faster. Multiple pull requests in that are merged together and then re-verified against the CI. And this can be optimized even further, adding something called batch size. And what this will do will create a first temporary pull request to check if the first 3 enqueued pull requests are mergeable together. And then we'll create a second one to check if the 3 next enqueued pull requests are mergeable together, and so on and so forth. The multiple queue and the speculative checks are features that are available in the premium plan, not in the free one. Finally, let's talk about prices and how you can save some money on Mergify. First of all, as I mentioned before, they do have a forever free plan that you can use that cover the usage on public repositories and have unlimited rules and actions and even some basic merge queues. But if you want more, like using Mergify on private repos, advanced queue features, batch merge, or even having a dedicated bot account to act on your behalf, you can subscribe to one of their paid plans. And as I mentioned before, if you want to subscribe to any of their paid plans, you can use the coupon code CoderDave22, all uppercase, at purchase, so you can get 2 months for free on any of their subscription plans. But be quick, because it's reserved only for the first 50 users that will use it. And if you're part of a startup, it gets even better, because you can get up to $21,000 worth of Mergify services free of charge. The company has in fact launched their startup program, a 12-month partnership between new ventures and Mergify, which give access to all Mergify features for free. If you want to verify if you're eligible and apply to it, you can use their startup program page. You can find a link in the description, or you can email them at startup@mergify.io. Let me know in the comments section below what you think about Mergify and if you already had a chance to use their services. Also check out this video over here in which I explain how you should manage and review properly your pull request. But that's it for me. Thanks so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed it. Hit the like button below, subscribe if you haven't already, and I see you in the next video here at CoderDave.